In 1975, David Bowie released his eighth proper studio album, Young Americans, recorded in Philadelphia, produced by Tony Visconti. One track that didn't make the album is this one 6.5 minute Philly soul gem called It's Gonna Be Me. The heaven that they create at the Sigma Sound Studio with those strings, those lavish arrangements, and the drawn out bars and slow, kind of dark, loungy, misty vibe of it all.
Hey Jack, I better shake it off. Put her out of my head. Thinking about just another young girl last night. Oh brother, I left a woman.
I hear him like you add that vibrato to those like sustained held vowels and such. Yeah, really picking up on the American soul singers of the time period, and just as brilliantly as he earlier in the decade he had mastered the vocal phrasing of like European cabaret and chanson singers and such. Yeah.
In that morning bed, being on that trip so many times, God, was really yesterday.
See, his voice is like one of the instruments in this.
I've tried it so many ways. I've lied and taken off into the day, leaving another girl to weep.
Okay, I gotta catch up with the lyrics here. Hey Jack, I better shake it off, put her out of my head, the thinking of all, just another young girl last night. Oh brother, I left a woman in that morning day, been on that trip so many times, good God, was really yesterday. Let's see. Someone commented, Bowie laments his promiscuity and his detached relationships with women. Yeah, I was trying to kind of figure out from these first two verses, who's he really blaming for all this that's going down? I've tried so many ways. I've lied and taken off into the day, leaving another girl to weep over the breakfast tray. Loved her before I knew her name. Hit me, Jack, 'cause I'm gone. Love her way. Yeah, a 70s scenario, or many recalled, like, yeah, of 70s life on the road and the just impersonality of the relations that you have, like in passing.
Leaving another girl to weep over the breakfast tray. Loved her before I knew her name. Jack, 'cause I'm gonna love her way. Come back my way. Be holy again and gave her. Ooh, baby, baby. Ooh, gotta give her. Ooh, baby, baby. That kind of love can only destroy her.
Okay, the that landing when they that kind of love, yeah, and that where they land on that major seventh chord F major that that kind of F E, yeah, that so beautiful, so just kind of like bedroomy, loungy, Yeah, as I've said in videos before, major sevenths are like the slanted eye, are like the bedroom eyes of chording.
Ooh, baby, getting down if I'm gonna be a baby. Gonna be. There was no rain to take me when all those little things walked on by. Oh, but I couldn't really stammer out a word when that angel stuck in my mind.
Oh, I just the very slow kind of selective placement of beats in this and that echo that they produce.
Looking for love won't hold me back.
Voices like harmonic elements like from the female singers that are kind of like mirroring the strings in a way.
No, I'm gonna love her away. Come back, my babe. Be holy again.
The bass is basically carrying most of the rhythmic element. Like the downbeats are like few and far between, and there's this kind of like suspended lurch to the to the feel of this track, and I just love it.
I can leave her. Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. That kind of love can only destroy. I gave up. Ooh, baby, baby. Gotta get down to my. Gonna be a baby. Gonna be.
Just when I was about to declare the piano kind of the active ingredient in the like tonal coloring of this track, amid the strings anyway, the piano kind of like kind of punctuating the overall framework of the track. David Sanborn comes in with his sax magic, you know, something that he also worked on, like the title track, and yeah.
Playing that latest record, waiting for the telephone to ring. Wiped out and bit on, bag clutched in the hand. All the cars sound like they're pulling in the drive. No, no, no.
Okay, let's see the lyrics here. That kind of love can only destroy. I gave her ow, baby, baby, getting down. If I'm going to be, the baby wants it. Going to be okay. I think the verses are a little bit more substantive than the chorus lyrically. There was no rain to check me when all those little things walked on by, but I couldn't feel this, stammer out a word, when that angel stuck in my mind. Looking for love won't hold me back. I'm gonna love her way. During this period, Bowie didn't write about mundane topics like love and relationships so much. He tended to be metaphorical, oblique at times. Here, he's taking a very mundane topic and being somewhat coy about it, leaving select words out and kind of like trying to dance around the topic. And I guess he's trying to convey through these lyrics that the narrator of the song is somewhat ashamed of his actions, and yeah, and just the track record he has of like loving and leaving. Yeah.
I see her now, a little tear running down her cheek. Lost, breaks down her street and knock hard, hard, hard on the door until she breaks down into my arms like a treads a tie, and I feel her pain. I'll be so strong again and again.
Okay, you know Tony Visconti was really won over by him as a vocalist at this point. He's like saying, okay, everyone drop out. This is just going to be Bowie's vocal spotlight here. Yeah, and he has the power to carry it.
Come back, my baby. I'll take you, oh baby, baby, baby. We're gonna have, oh baby, baby, my kind of love can only bring you joy. I'm gonna be there, baby. Yeah, gotta give you, baby, baby.
Okay, the backing vocals that you're hearing, a prominent voice there is Ava Cherry, who was like in his posse during that era, and Diane Sumler, and let's see, maybe, oh, Robin Clark, probably, yeah, those three. There's some other vocalists there, backing vocalists that are also credited, but I don't hear them here. We're not hearing Luther Vandross, no. Yeah.
'Cause it's gonna be
Well, I'm glad that piano got just a moment of its own to shine. Yeah. Yeah, It's Gonna Be Me by David Bowie, a track recorded for his 1975 album Young Americans, but pulled from the track list at the last minute when the whole John Lennon opportunity arose, and they recorded those two tracks. I really wish that this had been included on the album instead of the cover of Across the Universe, which I consider the weak link of that album, of what is otherwise an excellent album. Yeah, one of my favorites by him. I just love the arrangements, the sound, the tonal colors, the atmosphere, particularly on the ballads. My favorite tracks being When. Yeah, which I did about a year ago on here, yeah, and watched that video for my breakdown of that. Right. Somebody Up There Likes Me. Yeah, I like the slower deep cuts on the album. Can You Hear Me? Which he did on Cher's television show in 1970. They do a duet on it. Yeah, that video's on YouTube. Go watch it. Yeah, very dreamy. It's got this cloudy surrounding lighting and kind of misty, dry ice backdrop. I think maybe backdrop. Anyway, a very kind of cloudy look to it, and that just suits the music, suits the cloudiness of the track, and she seems quite enthused to be duetting with him. Yeah, and yeah, I just very much appreciate how, despite all the other ground he had covered in his career and how far he had been from, and how kind of Europeanized he had been up to this point, he tours America and he's just really taken by the energy and creativity going on in Philadelphia. And like I've done many clips, covering tracks from the Philly sound, and have gone to great lengths to explain how I love the atmosphere of the string arrangements and the chording that they used. And he incorporated that quite brilliantly and employed some of the local talent, for this release. And I guess these recording sessions were a big springboard for the career of Luther Vandross, who would release his first album in 1976, a year after Young Americans, and there's a track on there, Funky Music, which has a backing track that's based on the track Fascination. It's the same music, chord structure and everything, same vocal, melody, and cadence and all that. Yeah, yeah, and of course Bowie also. There were three tracks from these sessions that didn't make it to the final album. There was the one we just did. There was Who Can I Be Now, and there was a remake of John I'm Only Dancing, his 1972 single. And just like that first single didn't make it onto a proper album in its own time. Yeah, this one, oh, I really can't tell you which one I like better. I like them both, but this one more kind of in that funky, like mid 70s Philly vibe. And he would basically take the structure and chordal shape of that remake and use it a second time on the track Stay, which appeared on Station to Station. Yeah, I think there was kind of like a rights issue or something. And, he just didn't feel like he quite got his mileage out of using it on John I'm Only Dancing. Yeah, wanted the basic musical idea of that remake to be more widely heard, and so he recorded Stay. Yeah. Anyway, Bowie, yeah, an artist that just kept on reinventing himself throughout the 1970s and early 80s, and brought one of the great things about this album, Young Americans, is that it brought the Philly sound. It created a conduit through which more rock listeners could warm to who may have been ignoring the Philly sound because of formatting barriers that had become well established by 1975. You know, back in the 60s, everyone got to hear everything because stations were just a melting pot of all the great stuff from across the spectrum. It's like you would turn on one station, you would hear some Motown, you would hear some Mersey beat, you would hear some garage rock, you know, and you would hear some like pop crooners and like folk pop rockers and such. And by 1975, it was like the hard rockers, the jazz rockers, the soul audience. They were all the singer, they were all getting really regimented and divided, and this gave it opened up rock audiences, some rock audience, and particularly Bowie fans, rock audiences in general, to the sounds of Philadelphia at the time. But later on, during the New Wave era, it would be kind of seen as a precursor to the soul elements that came into the post-punk New Wave diaspora around like 1980, 81, starting with bands like Simple, Spandau Ballet, and then later on the sophistopop bands like Simply Red, you know, Swan's Way, Animal Nightlife, and such, Sade, yeah. Anyway, so it's one of those albums whose the appreciation for it has grown and grown as more people have come to understand it and what it meant, yeah, at the time, and the bridges it built, yeah. For more Rubies and Sapphires from Young Americans and from the David Bowie catalog as a whole, see the directory of albums by English D artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe, follow me on social media, share the video, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the track we just heard, the vocals, the harmonies, the lyrics, the musical layers, the rhythmic feel, the strings, the tonal colors, the overall production sweep of it all, and the atmosphere it created. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most air-traveled transactionalist, signing off.